Well, hey, before we get started with this amazing episode, please make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. All right. Well, welcome to another episode of Successfully Unsuccessful. I'm your host, Josh Dietrich, and today, physically in the house, is Mr. Josh Schrock, a friend, a brother in Christ, a business partner, and a fellow trusted advisor, I guess, in part of my Christian business group in Core Counsel. So excited to have him here to really share parts of his story, his transformational story, his career change-ish story. And so he and I really relate because he's a husband of one wife and a father of 4 kids. I have 5. And he grew up in the faith like I did and went to college and was fired up. But life takes its toll and life makes its way. And we're gonna plug into that and how a guy pursued real estate is now coaching. So I can relate to that coming out of e-commerce. So Josh, welcome aboard. Thank you for being here. How are you today?
Doing great, man. I'm pumped to be here.
You made the drive all the way out to Little Canada. I can't say Little Canada because that's actually a city. You made your way out to Canada.
It feels like it. Yeah.
Sure. It's a good hour drive.
Yeah, it's about an hour.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, love having you here. Just, again, catching up before we started. When I was thinking about our relationship and how we got connected, the 6 degrees of separation, the Kevin Bacon, everybody somehow is connected to Kevin Bacon. But I'm realizing that actually so much of my last 3 or 4 years is connected to you. And so there's a common denominator there, and it's also a common denominator in our trusted advisor forum. Yeah. And so it sort of brings to light the power of community with guys that are doing life with the same orientation and pointing towards Christ, right? So I love having a chance to connect with business owners, leaders, family men that have continued to work through those challenges and work out their faith, because there is no 0 to 60 and I'm there. It's an ongoing journey, right? So why don't you just quickly introduce yourself and we'll get on with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the family stuff, the good stuff. So I got 1 wife.
Very true.
And 4 kids. Our kids are pretty young. We got basically 7, 5, 3, and 7 months. So we're right back into the newborn phase, and it's been fun. It was a welcomed slowdown. It kind of corresponds with a lot of maybe what we'll talk about of just the kind of the change in focus of my work. But Shepherd is our youngest, and Shepherd just brought a forced slowdown, and it's been awesome.
So good.
Yeah.
And so, a guy with 4 kids, often is in that bucket of you have a lot, right? And so it's so often that people just know the version of you that our social medias, profiles show. And in fact, I haven't even seen you as a dad, right? Mm-hmm. I haven't seen you much as a husband. I've met your wife in the business circumstances. So it's just really wild, right? Because there's so much that happens behind the door. In fact, my wife has reminded me that, everyone else gets the good version of you and I get the what's left over. Right. And so true sometimes. So we'll start with, the career you had started in what, coming out of college when you got into real estate as an agent. How long ago was that?
It's 2014 when I first started the real estate journey. 2013, 2014 when I started the real estate journey.
But you graduated high school like in...
I graduated college in 2009.
Okay, but then 4 years before that. So you're an what year is high school grad?
2006.
Okay. So I didn't realize, I always forget that I have a few years on you. Yeah. I'm turning 40 this year.
Yeah.
That's the year. Okay. So you're coming up, really was 10 years kind of at that point of being in real estate. And so now let's just talk through in your years of real estate. You weren't just an agent, but you were an agent also building a brokerage full of agents, doing the recruiting, casting vision, leading team. Walk me through that, because I know a lot of what you're doing now comes from a lot of that experience as opposed to just being a salesperson, right? An agent. So tell us about that journey. How did you get into real estate? And I know you had some incredible partners to begin with. And so I love this part of the story, but I want to hear your version from the horse's mouth.
I mean, the starting point was kind of stumbling into real estate. There was for a long time, an appreciation and a passion for boring businesses, kind of the blue collar industry. Part of it was just kind of what I knew. I grew up around that and worked that in college and high school. And part of the alignment with that was knowing that, hey, it's kind of easy to stand out. And that's kind of how I operated. I never want to just build something that's like everything else. I want to build something that stands out, that actually has some impact and is different. And at the time, I mean, real estate there was some innovation, but there wasn't much. I mean, it has changed dramatically in 10 years. Like the introduction of all kinds of technology, there's been this flood of young entrepreneurial people coming into real estate. That wasn't necessarily the case. I don't know the exact stats, but I mean, the average age of a realtor was pretty significant. There weren't that many young people doing it. There were some, but for me, the passion was not just being another agent. I also want to believe in what I'm doing. So I had to be an agent, had to figure some of that out to be able to coach other people on it, or even to build something that attracted other agents. But the goal for me was to build something bigger than myself, bigger than my production. And in fact, it was seeing most of these people in the industry are just on a hamster wheel. They're just chasing the next commission check.
When's the phone going to ring? Looking for the referral. Yep.
And it's a weird industry in that it's weird. It's not weird in that it's like all their sales related jobs. Right. Sales is in a lot of ways just sales, but to get into real estate, there's a very low barrier to entry. So anybody can get in, and then there's no ceiling. And there's also a million different things you can do with one license. You can sell the house next door, you can sell the condo in downtown, and you can even dabble with some commercial stuff. So it was magnetic to bring a lot of people in. So I was attracted to that and kind of started seeing the problems that industry had. Like one, the hamster wheel thing that I was describing, with most people just being enslaved to the next deal, but also just seeing the impact of what happens in the home. That was a light bulb moment for me of like, as I'm trying to figure out how we can be different, my mind goes to like, what is the core impact that we're doing, and making that the thing that is magnetic, that draws better agents in, that actually helps us focus on the right clients. And it was a light bulb moment for me of even just personally going through a house project. We were doing a big construction project in a home we bought, and saw the impact that had on my all of life. Like home was a little bit it was chaotic. It was literally turned upside down. We were, displaced. We weren't inside the house. We were stressed about the construction cost. It took longer than expected. It didn't go according to plan, of course, right? So all those things, it made me less generous because I was consumed with the money. I was distracted. So I'd come into team meetings just tired because we were tired of living at brother-in-law's basement. We, not as fun of a dad because I was just drained. So that was the power of home. That was construction, but also was home. The connection point was the physical roof. When home is out of whack,
right,
it really changes everything. So for me, that was kind of like an infusion of passion that I rode into, helping get other agents excited about like the power of not just doing another deal, but like if we really infused the that core passion, it could help us.
Yeah, I love that. And you're right. I mean, so many different industries, it seems like it's easy to get stuck going through the motions. And when you think about good organizations, they really create a mission behind it, and they get people excited about the mission, even if it's the same thing done differently, right? Like look at your fast food experiences, and then you have a Chipotle experience, and it's like, wow, game changer.
Yeah.
And doing things different sometimes is the way to go, but sometimes there's value in tried and true. And so there's a bit of both. So what's cool about that is you were able to now get people pumped up about the vision. So you got a lot of good practice in. You came in as an agent, but eventually became the leader and CEO running the operation. And so how did you scale that up? How many agents did you get to? And then I think through that journey, you also discovered the power of investing in real estate. So walk us kind of up to that point quick.
Yeah, just to talk about the progression towards being CEO. I mean, for me, the motivation again was not to be a salesperson. It was to help empower salespeople to do to thrive.
Right.
And part of that was integrating the aspect of investing. If we wanting to take the knowledge, the experience, the exposure we have to this one particular asset class, being real estate, I mean, let's steward that well, and let's actually kind of take advantage of the opportunities. And part of helping agents thrive was to have an additional stream of income, investments, the opportunity to do flips, other things to kind of capitalize on the things around them. So, but for me personally, the progression was, hey, the thing that gets me out of bed in the morning is one, this aspect of helping people, but really the stewarding of the design of the business. So like at this point in life, like I would say the thing that I'm most passionate about is organizational health. So ultimately the thing actually what I want to do is help organizations have more impact. And the thing that I do best is help organizations be more healthy, right, and be healthy in a way that actually unlocks more impact.
100%.
And part of that is all the individuals behind it. And we can talk about that, but that's what gets me excited.
And you've done that now a number of times, right? So we talk about, becoming CEO of this first brokerage, your chance to really build and cast this vision, super cool, led into creating a fund and bringing on investors' money to begin investing in multifamily. Was it primarily single family with some multi-door, right? So as many as how many units?
I think we had close to about 100 units. Most of it was small footprint, and the genesis was, hey, we have at the time I think we had around 35 agents. So that was a lot of exposure to the market, and what we saw were, hey, it seemed like every day there was some unique opportunity that came across our desk. And there was this limited mindset of, hey, like there's so many opportunities, but we have so little capital to at least kind of meet the demand of opportunity. So that's the kind of like light bulb moment for the fund, where we said, hey, we're encountering, or we're getting into these networks of people that trust us. We've done many transactions helping them acquire and hold real estate. The conversation generally led to, hey, this was so good, and we like what you're doing. We like you. We trust you. I have extra money. Like literally just find a deal, tell me where to send the money, and we'll show up with the check. And so we had the idea that, hey, if we not only just have one person doing that, maybe we could get a couple other people together, get some bigger properties, create a little bit more velocity, buy more. And it was at a time, 5 years ago, 4 years ago when we started. You could get some really good deals. So we started in, single fam, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, and then started acquiring some small apartments.
It's crazy. And what I love about this is it reminds me of so many different entrepreneurs, and the idea that it's like the thing you start is there's parts of that thing you do that you love, and there's parts of it you just have to do, right? The transactional, I got to provide, I have to make money. But as you continue to follow the Lord's leading in your giftings, and where you're good and what gets you up in the morning, it continues to draw you closer to that thing inside you that you really, really just want to do, right? And it was never necessarily just seeing properties come on the market and go off the market and getting a commission check. It was this building, right? Is this creation, is alignment, this organization. So you continued that again into another phase, launching a new brokerage with a similar model, but this time really bringing all facets together. So the one-stop shop, the differentiator being, we're attracting good quality people, and good quality people have a network of good quality people. And so whether that means we're doing flips and doing investments or moving transactions or doing new construction, we can do it all. And we have the volume to be able to do that. I love that. I know that part of the story. Others don't. But what gets me excited is what came out of that. And we met each other in 2019, before COVID.
Yeah, it was before COVID.
Before COVID. So we go
5 years ago.
5 years ago. So you were doing your fund before that. So when I met you, you'd already been maybe a couple years in. So, wow. I think I said Mao. But so through that journey, this is the season, and we've gotten to know each other, and we had just sold our businesses in 2021. And you were sort of in this season of, all right, we're testing the idea of how do we win more deals with cash, right? And so you and I were collaborating on this, and I was like, what you're doing, Josh, like I can put my money to work, I know, on this other stuff, but I want an equity opportunity. I want something a little bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And so I forget how we kicked that off, but were you yourself in the middle of a flip or trying to do one, or had you done several, or what were you trying to solve at that point? I think you were looking for another stream of income to test this out, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think the original idea was, again, like all of the businesses that I was a part of creating were to support the core client, which were agents, the agents that are in our brokerage, of saying, hey, let's give them a unique opportunity to deals. Let's get their money in first. Let's grow it at a higher rate than maybe others. Let's get them another way to win deals, which was, kind of the original version of Cashability was, it was a tough market. I mean, white hot real estate market, like the historical, on some
multiple offers on, 10, 20% over list.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the original idea was, can we leverage cash in kind of a unique way where maybe you actually don't have to deploy much of any cash, but have the backing of cash to help our clients win.
Right.
And to win out in even certain, I don't remember the exact stats, but at the time there were a very high percentage of just a traditional real estate, your median home sales price, $350K, $400K. A large percentage of them at the time were still transacting in cash, which didn't happen as much in the past. And so we wanted to be able to compete against the institutional buyer and even Uncle Bob, who was bringing a check for the niece and nephew trying to buy a house.
And unbelievable. I mean, it's I have an Uncle Bob, and he happens to own a few banks, and so we'll carry on that, because what did we do? We created a bank, and unlocking the power of cash was the initial sort of model. But how did that morph? What did that morph into? Because I think what we're describing here is we see needs all over. And when you, as a visionary and an organizer, see the needs, you often go, how can I solve this? I know I can. Let's just put a few things together. So what did that morph to personally and professionally that kind of got us to where we are now? Because we have a pretty good model going now. And I think from an agent point of view, no cash at close for those that are looking to do fix and flips is a pretty amazing product to do no cash down. So hard money lender, that's what Cashability is. But tell us more about how that works.
Yeah. And just a quick personal story. The original product, we launched it and it didn't go like we thought it would go. It wasn't as sticky as we thought it would be. That was the honest thing that happened. And we thought what the core product that we had kind of envisioned would sell like crazy. Mm-hmm. It didn't. We were also kind of sampling doing hard money deals. And every time that we would kind of pitch it, people would say, hey, like, that's cool, but like, tell me a little bit more about this hard money thing. I really want to do a flip and I don't have the money to do it. Right. So that really kind of snowballed to, hey, also at the same time, all of us are kind of discerning, like, how do we bring our best? How do we steward our time well? Well, let's just be the bank. Let's not be as involved in in managing so many details of a transaction. Let's just manage our money and help allocate that to the right kind of people. And that's what Cashability ended up becoming, is just a purely focused hard money lender. We kind of think about ourselves as like a private lender that brings all of the capital needed to unlock a unique real estate deal, mainly short-term flip. And
I think the thing to point out there is too, what you don't see very often is relational lending, right? And so, as many have tried to buy a house or a car or anything, right? There's obviously baseline. You need to have credit. You need to have some cash or something down. That tends to be the case. Well, our product is kind of a fusion of both, not having to bring a chunk of money down, but rather an expertise in a trust factor. And so I think that's uncommon to be able to lend to someone based on that, right? And so how did that evolution sort of resonate in the market as you're seeing it now?
Yeah. I mean, maybe said another way, like one of the things that we wanted to do was we were doing something that people would say, that sounds a little too risky, or maybe that sounds like maybe a little bit too good to be true. And I think we were both motivated by, let's actually let's scale up what has been working. And that's been finding really trustworthy people who need the power of cash behind them. And I feel like we've solved that. We've figured out some ways to actually systematize, underwrite both the operator, the person that we're giving the money to, and the opportunity. The beauty of what we're doing is that there's a lot of collateral. Both the person has to have some collateral, but the real estate is obviously a big piece of collateral. And to kind of play off of all of our experience of like, we understand that asset very well, and we have the means to, in the worst case scenario, make sense of what to do with that real estate.
100%. Yeah. So cashability, the uniqueness of it was we found it and it resonated with the market. And so like when you find lightning in a bottle, and it's so fun when you have a product that works, you've confirmed the product market fit. You want to turn it up. And so that began the process of, after a few successful tests, let's put some more resources behind it. So we won't need to get into that, but for those that are interested in investing, what opportunities do they have if they have $25,000 or $50,000 laying around? How can they be involved? Is there something for them?
There sure is, Josh. Yeah, the bigger vision for Cashability is both to be able to deploy money and empower the right kind of people to do really cool real estate things. But on the back end, there's an equal passion to get people's money working. And so we created an opportunity where people can invest in kind of micro amounts or smaller amounts. Instead of a 100K threshold, our threshold is 25K. So you invest $25,000, 50, 100, maybe a lot more, and we guarantee a 10% return. So it takes the beauty of our business is strong. The properties that we're giving money towards they're strong real estate projects. We take the strength of that and be able to kind of back a 10% guarantee. We pay it out monthly. So that's kind of a beauty differentiator of the product, is that people collect the money every month.
Mailbox money. Amen. So a number of different starts, a number of different builds, kind of cutting your teeth and refining your teeth on organizational alignment, casting vision, building something bigger than yourselves, getting the team excited. It's in your skill set. And all of a sudden, real estate became less about real estate, but more about the practice of what you've been doing. And so I want to spend a few minutes and dive in here, because when you know something so well, sometimes that's all you know. You start to wonder, do I even love this? But the art of building is the piece that I've always loved too. It's not necessarily what it is I'm building. It's the fact that I'm building. And it doesn't matter what it is. When it comes down to it, you're solving a problem and you're doing very similar things. And so how does a person who has launched and been a part of several organizations that have grown and excelled and seemingly successful, move then into a season where, you know what? I want to do something different. I want to do this, but not in the same way, because that's what happened to me too. And I e-commerce was what I knew. It's everything. And so moving into this new phase of podcasting and content and really mission work of spreading the gospel the best I can with talking with other dudes, it's a little out of your comfort zone, and it takes a little bit of while and a lot of while, and sometimes often without any financial gain. And so I know you can relate. How, in your mind, walk us through that journey? How does that happen? And what would be, sort of the lessons learned, and when you really think about what you were pursuing, like what was it deep down that you uncovered that you didn't have? Because people can settle, and we see settling, but you're not a settler. So that's the question you're trying to answer. And I'm curious how you process that.
I think along the way there were times of kind of falling prey to what all of us would stumble into, of just kind of responding to all of the unique opportunities that come across our desk, of just kind of really being focused on growing, building, scaling. so there's part of that, but for me, the way that I'm wired, I don't almost want to do anything unless I genuinely believe in it. Part of that is genuinely believing in myself and my ability to do whatever I'm responsible to do. So I just spent a lot of time and a lot of money investing in knowing myself. And along the way, each of these new things that were built was kind of an expression of almost trying to be a better steward of that, but also kind of learning myself even more. And so the progression of, I think over time, was living even more and more by principle. Like using the opportunities of building businesses and different types of businesses to learn different parts of myself, what I'm good at, what I'm really not good at, where there's just conscious competence, and there's things that I just need to stay away from that stuff. And I've been in roles where I've been drowning in the stuff that I'm not good at. And I've seen myself come to life. And so part of it over time is just being more convinced that, hey, time is short. We don't have that much time. And I want to enjoy the work that I do. And I'm more aware of how I'm uniquely wired by letting myself kind of explore and go through the adventure of building things. I learned a lot. And so this new season is just about that, of taking what I do know about myself and trying to be even more kind of nuclear, more potent with that, and apply it in a new way. There's in the past, I've been able to do a lot of different things. I've been able to build things, pioneer things. Some of those things I'm very competent at, but it's not what I love. It's not what gets me out of bed in the morning. I'm just starting something.
Yeah.
I'd much rather make things better and help organizations be healthier and have more impact.
Personal development was a big investment, and personal development, spiritual development. I think joining a group, a Christian business men's group, for me was a big kind of like catalyst for that. Starting counseling, was that same idea. Like I'm not, there's things I'm doing that I enjoy, but I want to become a better version of that. Right. And so as you start exploring that, what other things were you kind of investing in to kind of see that?
Yeah, all that same stuff. I mean, there's been a commitment for a long time. Part of that, what I was just describing, of being genuine. There's a pursuit of being integrated, of not having, I live too much of my life having these silos, these masks that I take on, take off, and wanting to be like, hey, when you get me in the CEO seat, it's the same thing you get when I'm at home. Like, I don't want it to be too different. So part of that is the integration is like understanding myself. And so there's been a 10, 12 year investment into therapy and coaching and some peer advisory groups. All of those have, I think, really expedited the learning of myself and intaking wisdom, kind of learning through other people and other experiences. Sometimes allows me to avoid some of those same pains.
I think the power of that is often forgot. I've been in so many small groups, and I think if you were to just say, I'm in a small group, great. You should be in one. We're designed to be in community. But I think there's a powerful thing when you're around other men that have a same common core belief around who God is and who Jesus is and how the Holy Spirit works in us. And I think that's a lot of it. And so I've learned from yourself and others, and how they're tackling life. But I want to go back to a point here where, there's a whole element that I think fed into this. And I think part of it was the season where you were having your fourth child, and maybe reluctantly for a season of realizing that, man, a fourth kid takes more work, and I'm in the middle of grinding and building and having to really evaluate, like, I want to be present with my kids, but I have all this stuff going on all the time. And so I think not necessarily there was a light bulb, an overnight thing, but as you're developing, there was about a year ago or a year and a half ago, I remember specifically you're saying, like, I feel like I need to slow down and really dive in. And that was specific to moving into a new area. I don't think you knew yet what it was, but that was a season. And I think a lot of it was driven by family, at home, right? So part of investing in yourself is yourself, but also the relationship, number one, relationship with God, but number two, with your wife and then your kids. So how much did that play a factor in it? And really, how did that motivation really tip you over the edge?
It was a big part of it. Similar to you, the unfortunate reality of, the first 10 years in business was a lot of the best version of Josh Rock was passionately applied to business. I mean, I would spend hours designing our business to have be something of impact, and would spend a fraction of that. It wasn't void of that in the household, but way less of that energy, that passion was applied to the home.
Yeah.
And that was very convicting of, man, if I get through the end of life and I do just one thing, man, like the best thing that I probably could do is to disciple and train and give my best love, my best energy, my best excitement to my kids and my wife. So there was a season of kind of reverse engineering, and the two kind of themes were less but better. So there's so many things that I could do. But I want to do less, and I want to bring my best, kind of that stewardship of my talents. And part of that is I get more excited about the work, which normally for us, for anybody who's in that kind of sweet spot, there's even more beauty being created, and beauty has a way of drawing people in, unlocking opportunities. And so there was the less but better, and I'm forgetting the second one.
It happens. It's like, shoo. But I think while you're thinking on that, I think the key theme here that I recall too was, part of the brokerage, the second one in building that uniquely was helping agents unlock freedom. And that freedom was having the ability to earn passively. And as you're describing helping others try to achieve freedom, you're looking in the mirror going, wait, I don't feel very free. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I think that was a large sentiment in this journey to figure things out. Was it not?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, along the way, a lot of what I've always been trying to solve are some of my own issues, the issues that I experience as an agent. Like, how do I solve that? How do I, the freedom concept of, the not being a slave to the next deal or the next thing. It's like, how do we amass, some real estate to provide some income for sure.
I think that's a lot of how businesses kind of get started too. We think we're the biggest customer, right? Our audience of one starts here thinking, I can't be the only guy that's dealing with this, right? Mm-hmm. That's trying to figure this out. And so like, if I solve it for me, other people can benefit too, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's what gets me up in the morning now, right? So how has that led you into this season now of like, you know what? I'm going to put my real estate, transactional hat aside and really think about things differently and reorient my priorities. Mm-hmm. How long was that journey before you really decided that exiting that part and moving into what you're doing now? So first tell us what you're doing now, mm-hmm. and sort of how you got to deciding this and really pulling the plunge and making it happen.
Yeah. So now my best professional time is spent trying to help other organizations have more impact by being healthier. And the two main tools, or the main tool that I'm using to do that, is something called EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. So I'm a professional EOS implementer, and parts of that, our business has run on EOS for years, and it was absolutely a game changer. Every bit of me wants to create my own thing, have my own spin on something. It's a kind of, on paper, it could feel and read like a pretty rigid system, but there's a deep belief in me that we need, again, kind of back to the less is better. But as I was trying to learn how to be a better leader, I would intake so much content, so many ideas. There's never been more content out there than now, and it's overwhelming to think about like how to integrate that in the business. The beauty of EOS is that it brings a lot of those kind of time-tested principles, frameworks, tools into one system to rule them all kind of thing. But I guess one of the things that I love about EOS is that it, kind of brings all these things together. And I think the three main problems that it solves is, people that are encountering like, hey, I just don't actually have a grip on my business. I am ruled by my business. I am not ruling it. Two, like, I know that we're capable of doing more, but we've hit a ceiling, and we need to rethink how we manage people, resources, data. And ultimately, instead of like managing so many things, let's just manage 6 and make it super easy to implement and to ultimately scale a business. So I've found that it's one of the best ways for me to steward what I'm best at of that kind of design and helping people is to use that tool. And I got there because I realized that man, I just well, I won't go into that, but that's the US story.
I love it. I love it because I love US. When you think about the framework of it, the principles of it, the details sometimes for me are less important than you talked about the principles, right? And so I think when it comes down to a framework and how we operate, we're looking at vision, mission, the people, scorecards, the rhythm of the meeting, how you do this effectively. And it's transformational. And when you get alignment, things change, organizations change, and they make better impact. And so I do love going full circle to this steward thing. And this is why I go continually on this path of stewardpreneur, and that word around the God-given abilities you've been given are very unique. And the way you can take people and elevate people and organize people is a gifting. And so you get up in the morning excited about it. You're good at it. You're serving. You're using your gifts to serve these organizations. And we often forget the fourth leg of that to kind of create your whole purpose is how you get paid to do it. And the thing we do in life. And those 4 pieces, I believe, is very important to continue to learn about ourselves, dive into ourselves, and listen to the Spirit and where He has us. And making those transitions sometimes are easy. And I've had a lot of things, and maybe you can relate to this, where the door is just open and you go through and it's a deal. But there's been a few seasons over the last couple of years where it's like God's standing there and He's like, this thing here, this isn't like, burst through it, run at it, go tackle it. It's this soft, still voice of, I've made you, I love you, but you need to continue to embrace me and follow what I have for you. Like in that, it's like anything. The reward comes with the slow and the tried and the true and the faithfulness. And, for me to hear that launching this thing and building a community of men, was going to be what I was doing. I wasn't like, I'm going to do this today, and I think for you too, there's this longing behind it all, right? And it comes from the principles of who we are, how we're wired, and wanting to change and wanting to be the person that you preach about, or you talk to others about in all areas of our life. And so there's so much power in that. So I commend you for not only making that leap. I know how hard it is, and I know financially it takes investment, it takes time. What do you say to others who are literally in the middle of, I'm doing my job, I own this business and I'm selling this thing, and I had another conversation with Austin sitting right there. It's like his previous group making all kinds of money, but he wasn't fulfilled and he wasn't living the life he wanted. Right. And so how do you start change? How do you make change? And when do you actually reap its reward? Because it's not instant gratification like we want to think, us millennials. Right. So was it painful or was it peaceful? And how did you find joy in the process of discerning?
Oh man, there's a lot there, but I think, it kind of comes back to knowing yourself to lead yourself. So there's some self-discovery for sure. Part of the discovery for me, and I'd say for anybody, like a point of advice would be really being honest about what's even worth wanting. Not like, what am I best at? What could I do? It's like, man, I could go out and do so many things. I feel confident of that. But for me, it's been almost orienting more around the principle of stewardship, of like, what is worth wanting, knowing the cost behind of time and money, or money not made by pursuing out of principle an idea or stepping back from something, which has kind of been my experience, and stepping into something new. I think that's been a really pivotal question for me.
Yeah. And not an easy one. Right. And I think wrestling with the inner self of like, I've made for more. And I just remember so many times, like, and I think this brings us back to, you know, learning as we grow up. We're kind of conditioned. And we talked about this is like being the same person at home as I am in my business, as I am in public, as I am in fill in the blank. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think growing up in the church, especially where, a smaller community, kind of everyone knows everyone, it feels stuffy. It feels like this is how everyone is. You see the same people, they're this way. And then you go out to the world, you go to school, you hang out with others, you have a job, and no one is like that. And so you start to question fake and real, and what the world has or what we would think is normal is a constant battle unless we find true north, unless we orient ourselves on truth. And so often our journey is discovering truth. And the more truth we start to realize, it points to how do we live a life in love? How do we live a life that follows Jesus? And when we do that, it impacts everything we do, right? And so I think the point when we think about like getting to that and being able to, understand yourself and first is your identity and who am I? And I was uniquely and wonderfully made in Christ's image, but I didn't know that right away. And in fact, I'd be curious to hear, as a pastor's kid, maybe that wasn't the belief you had about yourself. Cause I know it's going through the motions and, saved because of the circumstances, but then working out your faith for me at 18 years old, when I moved to Minnesota, I was like, I'm free now. I get to do whatever I want, and I'm going to pursue making money. I'm going to be in a rock band and I'm going to meet lots of women and I'm going to be doing all kinds of fun stuff. And, the flesh is so appealing. So I feel like if we go back in your journey, there's a large gap often when you have a base faith, it's challenged. And when it's not strong enough, it kind of flounders. But then when something happens in your life, in your case, you went to college, campus ministry kind of puts you into a place with other community, others around you going the same direction. And then we graduate. What happens? So take me through your just brief faith journey when we have this, I grew up a believer, status quo, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to go to college. In fact, I think I'm going to go into ministry and whoops, you know what? I don't think I'm going to do that. And I'm going to just, so we talked briefly about this, but unpack that for me. How does someone, with faith, it's like it happens every day to all of us. If you start with faith, you almost have to have the lack thereof to realize that the power of the Holy Spirit has been missing and how it's impacted you. And when you come back to it, it's like, oh, why was I ever there? Why was everything on my shoulders? So that discovery is where transformation really happens. What is Josh Schrock's come to Jesus transformation? What did it look like? And how did that kind of move into your marriage and that season of life where you knew you had to be all in?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think for me, like growing up, there was still this essence deep down of wanting to be genuine, but finding myself in almost all aspects of life, especially with faith, just doing what I needed to do. I was a pastor's kid. And so you're kind of like on stage, you're kind of like the prototype for what you're supposed to be like as a young Christian kid. So I did the song and dance and there was a belief like along the way of wanting to really kind of believe it, but maybe not giving myself the proper space to ask the hard questions and explore both the questioning, but also how I'm uniquely wired. It was just like, just show up, kind of do the thing. And that was honestly very unappealing to me of like, I would discern seeing the majority of the people that I was around, other Christians, is like, I don't want to be like anybody in my church.
Right.
Anybody.
Right.
And, that was a big reckoning with me of like, still like, it's all that I've known though, like, and as long as I can remember, my dad's been a pastor and our best friends were other people just like us. And so there was almost like, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And,
right.
out of college, life completely changed, where it was like, okay, yeah, I could like recite some of the like the things you're supposed to do as the Christian robot. But it was all challenge of like, I actually want to believe this. I want to explore the other side of this. And I feel like as I did those things, I came back to just nothing but confirmation that not only does this make sense, but the big selling point for me was there is way more joy here. Like the actual point of this whole Christianity thing is not to just be something that everyone else wants you to be, to put on this mask of being nice. It's not just about being nice. It's there's actually this whole kind of robust joy. Like it makes sense of life. And that's still the case for me. Like that's still what I believe that it does. It's the kind of the ultimate North Star for me. I talk a lot about that in my business, of having this big vision that almost propels you forward. It's magnetic. And so much of what I've learned from Christianity, it does some of that. It like gives me purpose. It gives me the magnetic kind of pull forward.
Dude, 100%.
So it was a long journey of kind of pulling off some of the masks. And only in that space, when there were no strings attached, was I actually able to engage the real self, to meet the real Jesus. And that's where beauty started for me. Like there's this concept that I had in my mind of Jesus wanting or needing me to kind of get rid of some of the junk so that we could kind of journey together on this path. And what I encountered was only in the moments when I was like, this is the real me, Jesus came to me with his arm wrapped around me and said, hey, we're going to take care of this just one at a time. Like we don't need to do this all in one season. But the point being, he was with me. It wasn't like accomplish these things, get rid of these things, and then we'll have a talk. It was like, hey, let's do the thing where you're at.
Yeah.
And along the way, the power of that love, that grace was transformative. And that essence has transformed my marriage. It's transforms how I relate to people. To actually be able to encounter the depth of that grace and the love changes how I want to love and be gracious to other people.
Right on. And that's a very good way of explaining like the fruits of the Spirit, right? Like if we think that our job is to just, check all these boxes, right? And rules and rituals, that's religion. And right. And on the relationship side, it's like Jesus wants to give you life and abundantly. And when he's flowing and working in you, he promises we'll experience love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, and self-control. And if you list all of these and you think about, is there any better attributes that you would want? And okay, well, I can show love and I can be joyful. And no, what we're talking about here is having the ability to take all the garbage and the baggage and the programming we have, how we see people, how we think about people, the stuff we talk about. Does it point people to a better path or not? Because if you're not for him, you're against him. And if you think about it, you strip all that away and you get down to your core love. And if you show up every day and love is on your forefront of your mind, just to meet people where they're at, it helps fill in the rest of those fruits of the Spirit. But if literally our hope is that we can show others that there's another way to live by being that person, and you desire that because at the end of it all, there's rewards in heaven, and it creates so much more meaning here on this earth. It's like a bomb could have gone off, and you can sit here and say, there's a reason for that. I don't understand the reason, but God is sovereign. He's in control. And frankly, I don't get it. I don't know how it was allowed, but I'm going to put my head down and I'm going to stay focused and I'm going to continue to love other people and not question that. When you get there, that's the kind of transformation that can impact so many people, right? And then when you take that into your work, it's contagious. When you take that into your home, it's contagious. So I so love knowing dudes like you. In fact, it's so cool because I had a lot of the same opinions. Like, the people I grew up with in the church. And it was very, like, those are the dorky kids and the kids that maybe I didn't want to hang out with, and I had to. And, I am so blessed to have dozens and dozens of guys in my life, and very few like yourself who can be real, who are aligned, who can share these stories and not be ashamed, because I'm ready to talk about the deepest and the darkest of crap. Why? Because it points people back to him, because I know it's not what holds me anymore. And when you see things like marriages being restored after infidelity, and you had to go down to the bottom, to pick yourself back up, it ain't your strength anymore at that point. And so, submitting everything to him, so good. The way you explained that, man, and just rattled to the core. I felt like I had that too. He's like, we got this. It's like, and you're like in your mind, what about this? And what about this? What about this? And all of a sudden, this is how it happened for me. I had these light bulbs turning on intellectually, because that was always my thing. Like, well, how does this work? And how about that? Mm-hmm. And it was like a peace that surrounded all of those issues. It was like, yeah, but I'm in control. And it was like,
yeah.
One
thing that happened to me, there's Strengths Finders is an assessment a lot of us are familiar with. And one of my top strengths was individualization. I never heard of that word per se, and really would never be able to describe the meaning of it. But what happened when I first took that test was like, it was a lightning bolt moment of not part of my Christian journey was, being around these movements that seem to be so focused on numbers. And part of the way that I'm wired, there's kind of this genuineness of like the individualization is like seeing every individual has a unique journey and doesn't fit in a box. And so something that I get excited about is how I also experience God. I was very individual. It wasn't just this corporate experience of like said this prayer, had this thing happen. Right. It's like, it was an intimate experience.
That's good.
And it changed the way that I want to engage and kind of leverage my faith, not as a means to have a bigger score of like converting more people, but it's like, no, I actually believe that this thing that I've encountered, being Jesus himself, does get me on the path to more joy, more life, more of him, and also make sense of the things around me. But also that has really transformed the way that I think about my own personal mission. My personal mission is to love, lead, and listen to every individual around me so that they feel and know their unique purpose.
That's
their
so good.
Inner beauty that's in there.
Yeah.
That takes time.
That individualization, right? And it's almost like that was a strength of yours. So now reframing that for others to be able to, because I agree, that was actually one of my top 5 when I was at Best Buy, individualization. I'm like, what is this word? Yeah. It's almost like the embracing of your uniqueness.
Yeah.
But when you identify that uniqueness in Christ and you put those two together, it's like, oh, like you said, light bulb. It's like, oh, I'm free to be me with only one string attached, and that's love God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and lean not on your own understanding, and love other people, period. Like, oh, okay. So if I do those two things and I can be me, it can look like anything. And now if we start focusing on where do I get excited about, where am I good? And what does the world need? How do I serve them with those gifts? Spiritual gifts. Have you done spiritual gift finders?
Yeah, I think so. A long time ago.
Yeah. So that's one to revisit, because I didn't give for a long time. Like, it probably was now, I went back, just did this recently, and I was like, how much did I make? What was my taxable income? What was my giving? Trying to like get a sense of my trend and how I can up my giving. And less than 10 years ago, and it's like, everything is mine and like, I can't part with it. And then the reverse of that is it's all God's. He's allowed me to keep 90% of it or whatever, so that mindset is like, he made this world, he made everything in it, he made the people, he made the animals, he made, this worth for us to subdue it and make use of its resources. That's why we're here. Along the way, there's people that we need to serve. And so when we put all those together, we can live our life with a purpose. And So good.
And both of us had transformational experiences inside of a space where we could be fully known.
Yeah, for sure.
Where we could be kind of unhinged, trusting that these people are going to be, maybe it's just one, maybe it's a counselor, someone who's trained. I think there's wisdom in not having that kind of like confession just anywhere and everywhere, but someone who can actually handle it on the other side, be a safe place to explore.
Them. You trust them. Yeah.
Yep.
And they're not just being paid to even listen to you, right? Like, these are real dudes. Like, I get to sit in a room with you and a couple other dudes that have been uber successful in different ways. It's like, oh, that's how you pray with your wife, or that's what you do when your kid acts this way. And you're like, you know, my dad said the same darn thing, but it took huge shock to convince me, you know, whatever. And isn't that so true? So good to have you, man. I love every chance I get to connect with dudes that are like, how do we get better? How do we grow? How we build things, and use our giftings doing it. So thanks for being here. Any last words? How do we find you? How do we know more about you?
Yeah, you can go to joshrock.co, joshrock.co. It's good launch point to learn about my story and the work that I do.
Awesome. Well, dude, thanks so much for having us. This was another episode of Successfully Unsuccessful. Mr. Josh Schrock joining me here in St. Michael, Minnesota. We'll see you next time.